Thanks for that. Well, the defending All-Ireland champions, Kerry, began the defence of their title by travelling to Thurles to take on Tipperary. Now remember, the Tip under-21s had already beaten Kerry this year, so how would the seniors get on? Our commentary team is Martin Carney and Darren Maloney.
Brian Sheehan from St Mary's. Foot pass in, the marking is absolutely awful on Donaghy. One way then the other. Kieran Donaghy with the opening point of this Munster Football Championship quarter-final. And if Tipperary are going to be competitive today, they're going to have to be tighter on guys like these.
Brian Sheehan was wondering there for a while what he was going to do with the ball. Kieran MacDonald was badly left for dead that time with the sidestep from Donaghy, who scored a very easy opening score.
Here come Tipperary. Philip Austin loves to run it. Defenders, Austin! Fantastic goal! A goal for Tipperary in the 7th minute, and that is what Philip Austin does best. He just loves to run at defenders. That's the instruction he's got all week from John Evans, and this is a cracking goal. Tipperary in business here.
No fear whatsoever. A lovely assist that time from Hugh Coughlin again. Just watch Philip Austin's determination, conviction, and a beautiful rising shot into the corner of the net that the debutant goalie Keely could do very little about.
Donncha Walsh. Here's Mike McCarthy. He's absolutely flying early on, and McCarthy in towards Kieran Donaghy. 3 players there for him. Here's the Gooch, and Cooper gets Kerry's second score. 2 points, one from Donaghy, one from Colin Cooper, and a nice, calm, measured response to the Tipperary goal from the All-Ireland champions.
Just watch the little loop around from Colin Cooper. Instinctively knows where to run when Donaghy gets the ball.
McCarthy sending it up to Declan O'Sullivan. O'Sullivan to Cooper. Cooper getting out in front of Paddy Cobb more and more. And Kerry in here. Paul Galvin steadies down, and another point for Kerry, and that was so easy. Tipperary have their goal, but you see the difference in the way they're having to work for their scores. Kerry, when they go up there, you just think they're going to get at least a point.
Beautiful interplay again between Cooper, Declan O'Sullivan, and Galvin just coming in effortlessly takes the score.
Peter Atchison for Tipperary. That's George Hannigan. Hannigan still with it, going for the point. Hannigan and getting it. Well, persistence paid off. The teams were level for the second time in this match, but Tipperary respond and they go back in front.
Yeah, that's great persistence again by George Hannigan that time again. Loads of defenders around him, but again, swings a foot at it and gets a very good score.
Mike McCarthy surging forward again for the umpteenth time today. Colin Cooper lets it off quickly to Galvin, who's been quiet enough over the last 15 minutes. Donaghy out in front of Kieran MacDonald once more. Colin Cooper spots a gap. Cooper for Kerry, into Galvin, and Kerry lead going into half-time.
Wonderful offload, I think, from Cooper it was to Galvin. Great score.
That's given away a mistake in the Kerry defence. Here's Barry Grogan for Tipperary, and Grogan, no pressure on him at all, puts it over the bar. And Tipperary draw level again.
Barry Grogan spotted the opportunity and again shoots a good point again, which should boost their confidence at the start of the second half.
Donncha Walsh. Cooper just stepped back, now he moves forward and gains a yard or two in a split second from Paddy Codd. Cooper, Kieran Donaghy, Cooper goes again. Walsh there, also Brian Sheehan. Cooper. That's a super score. Worth the admission alone, that was fantastic.
Absolutely beautiful, just watching that as it has been conceived, like the little hops, the little shimmies, just delightful to watch. The brisk movement from Cooper once again, but again taking the ball off Donaghy. They feed off each other so well.
Good distance on that from Fitzgerald into the teeth of a strong breeze. Quirk using all his basketball experience. And Brian Sheehan, there was a lapse in concentration in the Tipperary defence. Niall Curran not the quickest, and Sheehan through. 2 men on the line, saved by Fitzgerald. There was cover behind as well, but the danger still not got away. O'Sullivan for Kerry, and it's gone over. They did so well, Paul Fitzgerald particularly, with a fine save. Too many Kerry men about.
Yeah, I think Sheehan this time going through a very good save by Paul Fitzgerald. Again, the ball just toe poked away, but in the right place. Declan Sullivan takes the point in off the post.
Colin Cooper. Atchison's challenge at Cooper. Lost possession, but Kerry still have it with Tomas O'Shea. Big gap opens up. Waits for his moment. Pops the pass in to Mike McCarthy. McCarthy with the fist. Off the woodwork again. Oh, goal for Kerry. Brian Sheehan.
Tomas O'Shea linked up with Mike McCarthy, I think. McCarthy's ball came off Donaghy, and then not for the first time today, Sheehan in the right place to take the opportunity and fire a good goal.
Chris Aylward. They need scores. Grogan in there with Keeley, and Grogan with a goal for Tipperary. They're not gone yet. Barry Grogan.
Yes, a bread and butter ball into the square, and again Barry Grogan just moved in, sticked it to the net.
Tomas O'Shea. Now that's for Donaghy. Hangs up there, brilliant from Donaghy. Here they go, and the point, a lovely tidy score from Barry John Keane, the Kerry substitute. They're putting on a show now, heading towards the winning line.
Perfect kick in. Donaghy just feels it. First touch delightful. Barry John Keane's support, right angle run, and again good finish.
There's the long ball in again. That is magnificent. Sheehan, beautiful finish. Sheehan's been outstanding. Kieran Donaghy didn't quite catch it standing, but he plucked it out of the air. Amongst other things, this is one of the big man's key strengths. The ball launched in, great take, fabulous finish.
Again, very similar to the last score. Again, wonderful ball in that time for Barry John Keane. Donaghy's handling just superb, in the right place. Sheehan slides the ball into the net. Yeah, Tommy Griffin has taken issue, I think, with the slap. I think, well, Barry Grogan, he's had a yellow card
already.
already.
He's had a yellow already,
yeah,
he's gone.
Yeah, so he's gone.
Second yellow, and Tipperary finished the match with 14 men. Well, here is what happened.
Yeah, he caught him in the back of the head, but I didn't think there was anything malicious about it. Yeah, it must be said, even though the game is one-sided, it is a privilege to watch Kerry playing.
Kerry only led by a point at half-time, but they pushed on as we expected them to, and a handsome victory for them in front of 4,965 supporters. They leave contented and happy this evening. They've Cork to look forward to, but Kerry have disposed of Tipperary by 2-18 to 2-6. They're in the Munster semi-final.
We always knew Tipperary were going to be difficult coming up here today. They really put up in the first half. They were their intensity, the tackling was ferocious, gave us no room inside the full forward line, to create scores or anything. But I think the second half, we kind of, once we got ahead, I think they had to push on and try and attack the game then, and gaps open up in the back for us, or on the forward. So from that point of view, I think we're happy enough, but there's a lot of work to be done yet.
Jack Connor and John Evans brought the referee into the dressing room. I'm sure you're aware of that. Dave Coldrick, and we said, look, Dave, will you give us some bit of a clue as to what's going to happen out here? It's amazing. I just never cease to amaze that here you're training guys for a championship, and lo and behold, right before the off, there's a new version of the rules, or a new interpretation, and the poor referees and the managers and the players are all expected to know. How daft can you get?
Yeah, interesting point from John, and we're going to come to that. But first, as a Cork man, Tony, your impressions of Kerry?
I thought Kerry were really good today. They're much farther along the line than they were this time last year. They look like they're certainly targeting Cork in the next game. They're really up and running well. If you look at their team, Mike Carty proves what I always thought, the training was overrated anyway in the first place. Came back at centre-back, he was magnificent today. Donaghy at full forward. He's a new player, he was out all last year. Gooch is like a spring lamb running around the place. Like Brian Sheehan is kicking frees for fun. So look, Kerry are well set up, really well set up. and they really haven't gone away. They're there again this year, and they'll be very hard to beat.
All right. Now, one thing for people who are watching tonight who didn't see the live matches, you'll notice that after every match in the interviews, there's lots of complaints about the hand passes. And just to explain,
yeah, but I don't really think people appreciate how disruptive it was today in all the games, because it really spoiled all the games. And we're going to look at some of the incidents today from the Tipperary game, but after this we're going to look at it in more depth right across the whole ambit of the games that happened today. But first of all, today we're going to look at this is actually Tipperary's goal. Kerry attacking with the ball. Brian Sheehan has the ball, hand passes it out. David Coldrick blows it. Now we're going to look at it twice. First of all, we're going to look at it from Brian Coldrick's angle, and he closes his fist and punches it. So I don't think that was a free. Now, in fairness to David Coldrick, looking at it from this angle, I can see where his interpretation came from, but that's not the angle he had. Straight from this, tip come back, march up the field, and a fantastic finish.
Goal.
Great goal. Now, this is another one. Ball into Donaghy, as they were doing all day. He wins a great ball with his closed fist, punches it over, and Brian Sheehan gets a goal. I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever in this. I'd say if you watch it 40 times, you can see a closed fist punching the ball into Brian Sheehan. I can't see where the interpretation of the rule was there. I just can't see it. It looked like a closed fist goal.
All right.
Perfectly legal shot, punch.
Kerry, we've heard, without many of their big players from last year's final, and yet Kieran Donaghy back is such a plus. Yeah,
Donaghy's plus, but their attitude is good. They look like they're hungry, they look like they're fresh, actually. You know, maybe it did suit them in the league just to do what they did in the league. But Gooch is just such a special player. It's impossible to mark him. It's like chasing shadows. But look at his work rate here. He passes the ball. He goes in straight away, cuts back out, makes the angle for his left leg and kicks it over the bar. Fantastic movement, fantastic hard work. And that's the one thing people don't realise about Gooch. If you put a camera on Gooch in any big game, he runs for miles, over and back, making space, and he just doesn't miss. And along with that, he wins so many valuable frees for them.
OK, let's get back to this other point, though, that we've heard. So many players and managers after the matches expressed disappointment and frustration over the interpretation of the hand pass. Let's hear some of the reaction from around the grounds today.
We had a referee in with us the other night, and he was saying that, you know, one kind of hand pass is grand and another kind isn't, but to us there was no difference in the both of them. But certainly it is a tough rule for the referees as well to be up to speed. But you know, so you have to, I suppose, feel kind of sorry for the referees.
But I think David Coldrick did a good job today. He actually explained to us beforehand what he was going to pull and what he wasn't. So I don't think it was a huge factor, but today. But somewhere down the line, there's going to be a critical call going against the team. There's going to be pandemonium, I think. So it just remains to be seen. I think the jury's still out.
I mean, in fairness to the referee, he refed according to the book now, and that's what's actually happening in our game. Up there in Croke Park, they're changing rules every other day, and what are they trying to do with our game? Trying to destroy it. In my time playing football, I can assure you, there wouldn't even have been one yellow card, never mind red ones, in that game that I saw today. That was a clean game of football. I mean, it was really hard and tough, but that's championship football, and that's what it's all about. I don't know where we're going with all these rule changes. It's crazy.
Anthony, respond to that.
Well, I think it's across the board today. It's not me sitting in the Sunday game with a grumpy head for coming from the north saying getting out about referees. This is across the board. Yeah. Everyone who was at a game today, or anyone who watched games on television, are of the one mind that is what has gone on in relation to the refereeing and officiation of Gaelic football over this weekend has not been acceptable. Within the rules, you're allowed to the GA make provision that you can change the rules only once every 5 years. If you're allowed, if you know that, why are you waiting to the very, very, very last minute before you implement these rules? The change of interpretation in the hand pass has come about because of the failure of the closed fist pass, which was trialled in the National League. But at least there was a fair trial. When the rule was changed at Congress, you know, there was 7 or 8 new rules that didn't get through, but there was 7 or 8 other ones that got through, and there wasn't a word about it. It goes back to, I suppose, the amount of business that's there in Congress. There's too much to be done on the weekend, 100 and whatever odd motions, not enough time given to the things that are very, very dear to us as players and players and managers and spectators. It's not good enough. It's not good enough that fellas should train for 6 or 8 or 9 months for the championship. Good enough that spectators come in to watch a game of football. You can hear the groans coming from the crowd every time players were blown up for what were legitimate. And the rule says an underhand hand pass. We had scores of those today that were blown up A legitimate underhand hand pass is blowing up, and it's not good enough.
It spoiled the game today, actually. And you know, when you look at it and the interpretation of the hand pass, it's just ridiculous. And is it those people that were up in the conference should decide it, or is it the players and the managers and those involved? Like, they're administrators in that. I know they're goodwill and they get the motions from the clubs.
Well, in fairness, they're really representing the players.
But I don't think the players have any say in it, actually.
The communication process is not there with the players. You know, the players got a couple of weeks' notice, and with all due respect, they're training since January. You know, they're putting their lives on hold for their counties, and silly little decisions can cost them games. And to give them 2 weeks' notice or whatever notice they gave them is not good enough. And it's you can blame the refs to a certain degree, and it's unfair on them because they will pick up all the flack. You know, it's a hard enough game to referee. We don't have a defined tackle. And now we've got a hand pass rule that's very hard to interpret.
But it's quite clear. It's quite clear. It's quite clear in its definition. The definition is that if it's a clear underhand striking action, then that is allowed. And we had too many examples over the weekend where you had clear underhand striking actions. This is the sideline. This is another rule. You can't be inside the pitch when you're hitting the sideline. Now you look at that. Jeremy came 4 yards inside the pitch. Here today, Brendan Murphy, he's an inch inside the pitch. Linesman's 2 yards from him. Doesn't put up his flag. The referee, who's 30 yards away, it seems hell bent to come and enforce what is another rule.
And he brings it in 13 metres.
Well, that's actually, I don't mind. I think that's a good rule, taking that throwing away from the sideline and allowing. You know, we don't want Malays on the sideline, but this is the one that infuriates everyone who's watching and playing.
This spoiled the game today. There was
60
60 frees in this game today. Now, the average frees in last year's championship was 42.7. Maurice Deegan, in his 4 games last year, 45 frees he awarded. So this is a huge increase in the frees. Now, you can blame the players for some of it, but it wasn't the players today. It was the interpretation of the hand pass. And it spoiled all the games. It spoiled the viewing for everybody today.
You know, the ball isn't moving of its own accord in these situations. The ball is moving because it's been struck by a hand.
Well, kind of ball there, Kim. Just to illustrate now, it's kind of over-exaggerated, Kieran. That's the illegal overhand pass.
Well, I think you can fist it any way you want, sideways or underhand, but it just has to be an underhand action.
Right, and it's. So what's not allowed then?
Well, what the G are trying to do, they're trying to get rid of things like these sort of hand passes, those sort of hand passes, that sort of stuff. That's what they're trying to get rid of, and you can understand that. It's quite straightforward. Underhand hand pass is allowed, but today it was blowing up repeatedly.
Another thing that was blown today was for the short hand pass. They want an exaggerated movement of the hand, right? If you did that, they were blowing it. What is it? What is a hand pass? And there's no benefit of the doubt to the players. And some of the things we saw, the benefit of the doubt must go to the players. We want to speed the game up.
There's too much at risk. There's too much at stake here, Des. This has got to be nipped in the bud right now. We can't have a repeat of this next weekend. This has got to be sorted out during the week. Players need to be given clear direction on what is going to be allowed and what is going to be blown.
OK, but our sympathy to the refs on it, given the circumstances. What about man of the match nominees in this one, Tony?
Kieran Donaghy.
Kieran Donaghy had a fantastic game at full forward. Gooch was brilliant as well, and we had Mike Mack at centre back. But
in the end, the decision went to
Kieran, Colin Cooper, and Mike McCarthy.
Yeah. And in the end, the consensus was Kieran Donaghy was the man of the match. And I mean, you wondered in Kerry, they talked about the players they lost on the back of last year. They talked about Tommy Walsh going to Australia. How on earth were you going to cope with his loss? And then you have Kieran Donaghy stepping up to the mark and showing us what we all know he's capable of. You mentioned, Tony, that Colin Cooper's impossible to mark. Well, I think Donaghy's even more so. I mean, he has it in the air, he has it when it comes to ground. Great vision, great hands, wonderful performance. Hunger is right up there where it should be, and it's going to be a good summer, I think, for Kerry with Donaghy in form. OK, then let's hear from him then, because after the match, Darren Frahell spoke with Kieran Donaghy.
Congratulations, Kieran Donaghy, you're the GA man of the match, and you've been making up for last time because you missed most of last season.
Yeah, it was tough, to miss out on last season. You only have a certain amount of years at this level, and to be sitting out for one is tough. But no, just delighted to be back in with the lads and back playing championship football. And it's come a bit early for us this year, but we're just happy to be back.
All right, a reminder that we have a hurling preview coming up with